And I grew up in Saskatchewan, is where I'm from, and grew up on a farm and had a wonderful upbringing and a great family. And it's interesting in my farm upbringing because people think that, oh, you live on a farm, it's such a healthy place to be. One of the not so good things about it, especially if the farm is a non-organic farm, so a conventional farm, is of course exposure to high amounts of pesticides and chemicals. And so when I was 10 years old, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and he had a tumor the size of a grapefruit in his bladder. And even then, this was in the early 90s, his doctor talked about how it was likely exposure to our environment, okay? And we know now with cancers and a lot of diseases, autoimmune diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, so many of these diseases are related to our diet, our lifestyle, and our environment. And so we used to think that we didn't know why people get cancer, or it's genetics, or we have all these kind of things that we can blame it on, but we know actually that 95% of a lot of cases are related to the environment. And I think it's so powerful in terms of what we put into our mouth every single day and how we live our life, and the lifestyle that we lead can have such a powerful influence on our health. And so after my father, he passed away when I was 17 from cancer, and after that I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. My mom, my sister, my brother, all of us have autoimmune conditions. And I don't think it's coincidental that we all sort of grew up in the same environment, were raised in the same environment, and then we all ended up with very similar things. And so for myself, my journey in health kind of started at that point, because I was put on a harmful drug called Plaquenil, and it's given to people who have malaria or who have fibromyalgia, lupus, for example, often get put on these particular types of drugs. And it's got a lot of really harmful, negative side effects to it. And essentially I think I was spending more time going to specialists to get help with the side effects of the drug than the drug was even providing any benefit. And this was when I was in my early 20s. And of course at this time, what do you really know? I didn't know anything. I didn't grow up being exposed to this, unfortunately. And so it was kind of, I started to do some research. I was studying to be a dietitian, and I was starting to do some research into natural anti-inflammatories, because that was sort of the basis of what I was dealing with in my condition. And I came across some really amazing research on something called borage oil. Have you heard of borage oil before? It's a source of borage oil. Yeah, it's a healthy omega-6 fat, essentially. And so I came across some great research that was done on borage oil and rheumatoid arthritis, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. The very first dietary supplement I ever used was borage oil, outside of my, hallelujah. Oh, okay. Oh, it shuts on and off. Okay, well, we'll enjoy it while it's off. Outside of my Flintstone vitamins that my mom gave to me as a child, borage oil was the first supplement I ever used. And within 3 months, I had stopped basically using Advil. I was probably taking 8 to 10 Advil a day, stopped using the Plaquenil, and literally started to feel so much better. And I went, wow, if this is what this little thing, and I was taking probably 9 or 10 of them a day because the dosage requirements are quite high, can do, that says a lot. And it was really then, it was like this epiphany in my life where it's like, if you give your body the chance to heal, it will heal. And if you provide yourself with nutrition and with healthy living, there's just no telling what can happen in your body. And I think that's really telling and amazing. And that was really the start of me wanting to share about food and share about nutrition and share about supplements and the power that they can have in the body. So that's kind of how in this journey, and I always call it a health journey because it essentially is, and I tell people that I always didn't drink juice and drink kale and spinach drinks in the morning. This comes over time. And so when I'm speaking, especially with people who are just getting started in making changes in their health, I'm happy if people stop drinking soda and switch from white bread to sprouted green bread and make very subtle changes in their life and in their diet, because that in itself can just have remarkable influence on the body. So that is kind of how we've came to be. So this topic is especially interesting because after going through and becoming a dietitian in the era that I did, it was in the low-fat diet craze, where everything was about low-fat cookies, chips, crackers, yogurts, you know, eat margarine, don't eat butter, skim milk, skim milk or 1% milk, and instead of eating fat, we were eating tons of what? sugar, because they take the fat out of the food, it tastes like cardboard, so they need to make it taste better, and as a result, food manufacturers just load up the sugar. And as a result, as a society and in our country, we certainly didn't get any healthier, nor did people lose weight. In fact, the opposite happened. We got fatter, we got type 2 diabetes skyrocketed, cardiovascular disease through the roof, and as a country, we're in a very, very bad state of affairs when it comes to our health. And unfortunately, it seems to kind of just get worse and worse. And I think a lot of it stems from what people are eating on a daily basis, because really what you put in your mouth every single day does influence how you feel. And so this topic is kind of interesting for people, because we're still seeing this statistic happen, and I'm just finishing up my new book that's coming out in August, and it's called The Full Fat Solution. So it's all about bringing full fat, whole fat, real food back into our diet, getting back to the basics of what food was intended to be. So if milk was intended to have a lot of fat in it, then that's what we're supposed to eat. Yogurt is supposed to have fat. We're not supposed to remove the fat from the Greek yogurt. So when you eat like that, you don't have to be worried about it packing on the pounds. In fact, your body then burns and uses food more efficiently instead of storing it, because it's using what it was naturally intended to eat and use for nutrition. So it's a really interesting concept, and we know that unfortunately, as a country, we just continue to get worse every single year as our weight continues to grow. Unfortunately now, well, it's a good thing, I guess. We're a lot more sophisticated in our knowledge about being overweight and obese, and we know that it's not just how much you weigh on the scale, which is what it was always thought to be. People were addicted to, I had friends that were weighing themselves in the morning and then weighing themselves at night before they go to bed, and then re-weighing the next morning, because they were just so obsessed with the scale. And it's not about how much you weigh on the scale, it's about where that extra weight is stored on the body, because we know that's what really increases our risk for disease, especially when we are storing the extra weight around our waistline. Okay, so a couple of more important, other than the pounds on the scale, a couple more important numbers to be aware of is for men, we're aiming for a waist circumference of 35 inches or less, and where you measure your waistline is just slightly below your belly button, above your hips. Okay, so kind of in this midsection here, not underneath your breastbone or up at your ribs, down underneath the belly button, above the hips. So for women, we're looking 32.5 inches or less. So we know that anything above that increases our risk of what? What kind of health conditions are? Cardiovascular disease, this is the #1 killer in Canada. Type 2 diabetes, and we know, and doctors will tell people, if you lose a little bit of weight in your stomach, it will probably put your blood sugar back into a very healthy range, and you'll be fine. You won't need to go on medication or insulin, and it's just a very small change in your weight can make significant impact on your health. And so diabetes is absolutely related to it. Cancer is related to it as well. Too much fat in the stomach increases your risk of cancer. So some very compelling reasons why we want to keep the weight in our stomach down. Now, the challenge is that an easy place to lose weight? No, it's probably one of the most difficult places, and actually until fairly recently there wasn't even a lot of science to support that you could spot reduce, or you could kind of choose where the weight is going, unfortunately, right? Because if we could all just choose where the weight went, we'd probably be selecting different places, because when most people lose weight, it's not coming from the area they want it to go. So really important that we look for strategies to help us target it, and there is some really interesting science in a product that can specifically target fat in the stomach, because this is what we need to be most concerned with. Less about the scale, more about the inches around the waistline, and eating to help our body really try to get rid of some of that fat in the stomach, okay? And there are things that we can do from a nutritional standpoint. So why is it important? Well, we talked about diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease. All of those things together make up something called the metabolic syndrome, okay? So the metabolic syndrome is increasing in numbers every single year. Essentially, if you have 3 or more of these particular symptoms here, that means you have the metabolic syndrome, and what that does is it increases your risk of developing cardiovascular disease by 25 times, okay? And it almost doubles your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So really important, because a lot of people, and you may see this with your own family members or yourselves, that yeah, when you're overweight, you probably have high blood pressure, and you might also have elevated triglycerides or high total cholesterol. They do seem to go together in a cluster of symptoms known as the metabolic syndrome. So many people don't even know what these numbers are, nor do they know what their own numbers are. And I think one of the most important things we can do is take responsibility for our health. So you have to be proactive. No one's going to do it for you anymore, unfortunately. In this day and age and in this particular healthcare system that we have, you kind of have to chase around to find out where your body is at and find out where your health is at, and maybe even call to find out what your test results are after you have them done. Because I know a lot of people that go in for their yearly checkup or their physical, and then they never follow up, nor do they ever get a call from their doctor.
I just had a fight with one.
You just had a fight with one?
And I still don't have the results.
See?
I need to know.
Yes.
Whether it's good or bad.
Or bad, or just where it is at, right? And this is important, and this is important information.
Office that you're not supposed to call the office.
I know. And the doctor won't talk to you on the phone. That's what I always get told, right? I know, but it's important, and it's good that you're following up. I actually have a good, well, a bad story about this, but my sister-in-law took, I grew up in Saskatchewan, my brother and his wife and kids still live on our farm, and so my sister-in-law took my nephew, who's 4, into the doctor at Christmas because he was really coughing, so they decided to do a chest x-ray. Christmas came and went, and he had the fever, and he was really, really sick over Christmas. The end of January, she gets a call from the family doctor in Assiniboia, Saskatchewan. Jackson has pneumonia. She's like, what do you mean Jackson has pneumonia? Oh, we forgot to call you. We got the results of his lung x-ray back, and he has pneumonia. He's 4 years old, and he had pneumonia. So 2 problems. Number 1, my sister-in-law didn't call to find out what the chest x-ray showed. And number 2, they lost the report. It was just sitting randomly, and finally at the end of January, when they got time to figure out and clean things up, they found this report, and he had suffered through pneumonia. Right? This is the state of our healthcare system. So gotta take responsibility for our health and really be our own health advocate. So I encourage you, if you don't know what your blood pressure is and you don't know what your triglycerides and your cholesterol levels are at, find out. It's good information to have, okay? And then you kind of have a starting point of where you can begin to make some changes, okay? Really what this is here, I talked about your waist circumference. You can also do your hip circumference. What this basically shows is what shape your body is, your waist to hip ratio. So if you're carrying more weight above or below, that's what a waist to hip ratio will really show. The most important is the weight measurement, because we know that it's the belly fat that we really want to try to target, and that is what's going to increase our risk of heart disease. So what's the big deal with the metabolic syndrome? I always just remember things by acronyms. This is how I learned almost everything in school, was acronyms and things that stand for things, and I remember it by chaos. So coronary artery disease, hypertension, adult onset diabetes, obesity, and stroke. These are some of the results and some of the things that happen in our body if we have the metabolic syndrome symptoms. So what's happening? Everyone's trying to diet, and so everybody is looking for the latest and the greatest and the next magic bullet, because we are busy and we're stressed out and we don't have time to try to make the right changes in our health, which is partly how we got to this place to begin with, being overweight, is because we were too busy and too stressed out to really take care of our bodies. And it's no different when we're trying to tackle something that probably took 20 years. You didn't just gain weight and become overweight overnight. This is something that happens over the course of probably 10 to 15 to 20 years in some cases. So it's not going to happen overnight. There is no such thing as a quick fix when it comes to weight loss. And there are all kinds of diets available. Everything from, as you know, fasting and juice diets to some things that are more validated, like Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig, things that have a little bit more validation to it. In fact, probably one of the most successful and probably one of the best is the Weight Watchers system. It's quite a good system, very accountable, and it does try to teach you about nutrition. So I tell people, if they need a system and they need a program with a support group, that's probably one of the better ones to try. Supplements are meant to be just that. So they are meant to supplement your diet and the changes that you're making in your health and your life. I always tell people, if you're going to just do that and not do anything else, don't waste your money. Yeah, truly, truly. Because you need to be trying to make active changes in your diet, and there's no such thing as a magic bullet. You're not going to magically lose the 20 to 30 pounds that you've gained over the last number of years by just taking a supplement. But with that being said, there are definitely things that can help. And so the point is out of this $33 billion industry that exists in North America for weight loss products, do your research, know the science before you buy something. Really know, has this been studied? Has it been tested? Is it safe? Does it work? Are there results? How much do I need to use of it? How much is this going to cost me over the next 6 months? These are important things to really try to figure out before you just go based on what Dr. Oz says. And I think we all sort of have this love-hate relationship with Dr. Oz now, because it's turned into such a big pushing product show, yet if you have a product on there, you're kind of like, yes, can you air that again? Because that was really good for sales. But then when your product's not on there, it's like, wow, you would stop talking product and just talk about health. So it's definitely a love-hate relationship. But really, it's important to do your homework and kind of know what's going on. And then also, what are the reasons why you're gaining weight? Are you addicted to sugar? Are you over-consuming calories? Are you stressed out? Are you not eating enough? And that, for women especially, is probably one of the biggest offenders that I see. People will email me and they're like, I need help losing weight. I'm not even eating and I'm still gaining weight. And I'm like, that's because you're not eating. You need to eat, because if you stop eating, your body just starts storing everything that it does eating, and so the pounds just pack on, especially in the stomach region. And as we know, as we get older, this is probably the most common area to gain weight. So we know that belly fat has become a widespread obsession, and there are hundreds and hundreds of books published on the science claiming to be the next and the greatest and the latest. And really, just when you're picking up a book on this topic, skim through it, and if it seems to offer a type of scientific based approach or evidence-based approach, then it's a good system. Okay, if the book is mostly colors then and pictures, you know, maybe not the best system to follow. So what is belly fat? So two different types of fat, and it's important to know which type of fat that you're dealing with. The subcutaneous fat is the kind of fat that's stored on the exterior of the skin. So it's the kind that you can pinch. Not particularly harmful for your health. You might not like it, or like the way it looks, or like the way you look in a bathing suit or in your clothes because of the subcutaneous fat. A little bit more easy to target with cardiovascular exercise and core training, abdominal work. Full body resistance training can really help to tone up some of that subcutaneous fat for sure. Okay, the kind of fat that's dangerous and the kind of fat that we want to target more so than the subcutaneous fat is the omentum fat, okay, also known as visceral fat. This is the kind of fat that really packs itself around the organs. Okay, so it packs itself around the liver, and it literally shuttles pro-inflammatory chemicals around the body. And it also is responsible for increasing cholesterol in the body, for increasing our risk of cancer, increasing our risk of diabetes. This is the kind of fat that's responsible for that, and that's that omentum fat. So, of course, the most dangerous is the most difficult to lose, right? Only makes sense, okay? I also think this kind of fat is interesting in that it's hard, okay? So omentum fat is hard. So a lot of people have layers of skin over top that omentum fat. For example, have you ever seen men whose bellies are big and round and they're literally, you can almost knock on them. They almost look like a pregnant belly because they're so hard. That's omentum fat at its grandest, okay? And that is definitely a massive, massive risk factor for a heart attack, okay? And they have very little subcutaneous fat, but it's all just rock hard belly fat, okay? So that's the type of fat that we're talking about. Typically speaking, men seem to have higher levels of the intra-abdominal fat and higher levels of the omentum fat than women do until menopause and postmenopause, and then with hormone fluctuations, of course, more weight and more fat starts to be stored in this area. So there's definitely a hormonal flux that can contribute to this. Also with age, okay? So there's some hormones that cause belly fat to really be stored, and one of those hormones is something called adiponectin, okay? So adiponectin is a belly fat hormone. And we know that as we age, adiponectin levels tend to drop off. And that's one of the reasons why I hear this from so many people. And I think it starts in their 40s, okay, in the early 40s. So many friends of mine in their early 40s, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I just started gaining weight in my stomach and I've done nothing different. I haven't changed what I eat, I haven't changed my exercise, I haven't changed what I drank, and I'm still starting to store fat in the stomach region. And it's related to certain hormones and related to certain belly fat hormones, and adiponectin is one of those hormones. So there's a couple of factors kind of going on all at the same time. These are things that we need to be aware of before you can effectively target why you're gaining weight in the midsection. Also want to point out that when we're losing weight, we need to focus on fat cells. So we want to preserve the amount of muscle that we have in the body, okay? Remember, muscle weighs more than fat, which is why I'm not a huge fan of the scale for weighing yourself and measuring your goals. Because if you're losing weight properly, you might not notice a huge dramatic change in the scale. Possibly in the first week or two you will, because you're shedding a lot of water. But after that, the numbers are going to be a little bit disappointing and depressing, if you will. And you're not going to be very pleased with your progress, because if you're really truly targeting fat loss, the results on the scale are going to be fairly minimal. So the best way is how your clothes fit, okay? That's the best indicator with how you're doing in terms of losing actual fat. So if you notice a change in the shape of your body, in the way your clothes fit, you should start to drop clothing sizes, and that's a really beautiful indicator that you're losing the right type of weight. So I just like to tell people that. Fat cells take up less space, or take up more space than muscle cells. So, which is why when you start to lose weight, your body essentially shrinks, okay? But on the other hand, there's a lot of skinny fat people out there, okay? So there's a lot of people that are thin, but they don't have a lot of muscle, and their body is essentially a lot of fat inside their fat cells. So it can go both ways. So really important to target increasing lean muscle mass, and that truly done by diet with a lot of protein and by doing resistance training, lifting some weights. You don't have to be a bodybuilder or go to the gym. It can be very, very simple things that can be done at home, and we'll talk about that. So fat cells are the key. We all have approximately the same amount of fat cells, so there are 30 billion fat cells in the body. The interesting thing is that fat cells have an unending ability to just keep growing and growing and growing. So our fat cells can just keep expanding and expanding and expanding. That's why if you probably look at a picture of yourself today versus the way you looked 20 years ago, you sort of see just a bigger version of yourself, because our bodies just continue to grow. And that's why when you watch some of the extreme weight loss challenges and the extreme shows on TLC with individuals who are 800 and 1,000 pounds, this is very real. And it's because their bodies, because they're feeding their bodies so many calories, their fat cells just continue to keep growing and growing until they literally can't even get out of bed and can't even move out of their house. They need assistance with lifts and wheelchairs and walkers. And this is a very, very real phenomenon that exists. And it all comes back to this, okay? The fat cell's ability to just keep growing. So I find this interesting. So essentially what this is this is an X-ray, a cross-section of the back, okay? So it's like taking fat cells along the back and slicing them in half to see what's going on. So that's what this is here. So this is what we would call a normal fat cell. The white area is the amount of fat that's in the fat cell, okay? You can see the shape of it. It's kind of tight, right? Sort of mushroomed shape, if you will. The obese fat cell is perhaps telling in what happens when the white area is the fat and what happens to the shape of it. Blonk. And expands outwards, right? So look how much wider and flatter in its shape. So the body just extends outwards because of the amount of fat stored in the fat cell. It's kind of interesting, right? Yeah. So again, when you shrink your fat and you shrink the amount of fat inside the cell, you become smaller, okay? And that's one of the reasons your clothes start to fit different. It's about how much fat is placed inside that fat cell, okay? So do men and women see themselves differently? Very much so, right? Women are extremely hard on themselves. Men, not so much, but this is us all the time. This is what I tell people. We're so hard on ourselves, so we also have to give ourselves a bit of a break too, because we look great. We don't need to be looking in the mirror and seeing something that is not actually there. Okay, so what can we do to slow the weight gain epidemic? So what can we do? Well, of course, we have to start with what we're eating, okay? So the very first place you start with whatever you're dealing with in your health is with food. And for I know myself, when I realized that, oh, natural health, this can actually change the way that I feel. One of the first things that I did is I got rid of Good Host iced tea in my diet. I was a typical prairie girl who drank so much iced tea. We would like buy it at Costco in the big massive containers, and we'd drink a jug at lunch and a jug at dinner. And it was just, when you add up the amount of calories that get drank that are empty calories with no nutritional value at all, it's no wonder you can be 20 pounds heavier just from what you're drinking in the day. So honest to goodness, that was one of the first things that I did, was stop drinking iced tea. And it took me a very long time because I was like addicted to it. And I think the mixture of the caffeine and the sugar in it, sugar is extremely addictive. It's not our fault, it just is. It's toxic for the body and it's very addictive. In fact, there's a researcher out of one of the universities in California, and they did studies and they compared the effect of illicit drugs like cocaine and heroin to that of sugar. And they found the exact same release of neurotransmitters in the brain as they did with people on cocaine and they did with people on sugar. So the exact same neurotoxic effects are happening in people's brain. So it's not our fault. It is an extremely addictive substance, and it's one of the things that we need to target most off in our diet is the amount of sugar that we're eating. So when you replace the sugar, you need to replace it with protein. Okay, so this was the second thing that I did. And this is when I discovered the Reset Shake and started making a metabolic reset protein shake every morning. And what I loved about it is that I would feel full for 3 hours after eating it, drinking it. And who would have thought that you could drink something that you make in a blender with some berries and some milk and feel full for 3 hours, okay? And this is what I loved about it. And it's because of the protein and the fiber, okay? So when you eat breakfast, the most important thing you need to have, every time you eat is protein, healthy fat, and fiber. Okay? Those three things every time you eat are what help to keep your body feeling full. They're what helps your body to develop muscle, help your body to lose fat, and help your body have energy. Okay? So protein, fiber, and healthy fats every time you eat. That to me is my nutritional mantra. That is one of my go-to plans. It's very simple, it's very easy to do, not a difficult thing at all. And it doesn't have to be protein shakes. It can be at breakfast, it can be scrambled eggs with some sliced avocado and spreaded green toast, okay? So there's a great example of a perfect breakfast, okay? A snack can be an apple with some almond butter on it. So you've got fiber, you've got protein, and healthy fat, okay? So it doesn't have to be that, it just needs to be combinations thereof. Now, I like protein shakes every day because I find they're easy, and I find they're quick, and I often are like kind of running out of ideas as to what I should eat. And I'm kind of a creature of habit, and I sort of eat the same things and drink the same things almost every day. But this is one of the reasons why I like a shake either at breakfast or at about 10 o'clock. Okay? And I know when I've eaten the right type of food because I feel very kind of stable with my mood, stable with my energy levels, and I don't get that craving for sugar. Okay? And this is what happens to so many people, is because our diets are so loaded in sugar. And soft drinks are a massive problem, so if you're drinking soda still, please stop. That's like the #1 thing. If you don't change anything else, please stop drinking soda. And diet soda is no better, okay? So Diet Coke does not equal replacing Coke. They're both bad. Aspartame is as bad, if not worse, okay? So stop the soda, one of the most important things. And then really target the amount of sugar that we're eating in our diet. So on average, we're consuming about 150 pounds of sugar per year each person. So it's really no surprise why diabetes and obesity and cardiovascular disease is through the roof. All we have to do is go back to what people are eating on a daily basis. There's the answer right there, okay? So what should happen is, so typically what happens, I guess the best way to look at it is this. So because we know our diet is so full of sugar, and for breakfast, I see this all the time. I see this with my girlfriends who have little kids, and they feed them breakfast and they send their kids off to school on a stomach of Lucky Charms with 1% milk and a glass of orange juice at breakfast, right? You know people that do that. In fact, I was one of those children growing up, okay? Right? This is what we did. My mom didn't know anything about nutrition and anything about health, okay? So this is a very typical breakfast, and a lot of adults eat this way too, or they have a piece of toast with jam and a cup of coffee and they're out the door, okay? What happens when you get to work? Like shaking, you're irritable, you're like starving, you're in the lunchroom already looking for the next cup of coffee and the next bagel and muffin that's sitting in the lunchroom because we're hungry. So what's happening is when we eat, we're getting this massive spike in blood sugar up to this here, so it's the green line here. What's supposed to happen is that over the course of about 2 to 3 hours, our blood sugar should slowly start to drop, like the red line. So this is the ideal. Over 2 to 3 hours, it should slowly start to drop, and then at that point, what are you supposed to do? Eat again, okay? And what are you supposed to eat? Protein, fiber, fat, okay? And when you do that, you get a nice slow rise. These are good students. We get a nice slow rise in our blood sugar and then a nice slow fall. So essentially over the day, your blood sugar levels kind of look like rolling hills. Nice slow rises, nice slow falls. That is the perfect way, and that is the recipe to keep within a healthy weight range. It truly is. It's very, very easy to do, okay? What most people are doing, eating lots of sugar, big spike in their blood sugar, because they basically didn't have anything to slow down the sugar, release into the bloodstream, their blood sugar's crashing very, very quickly. So they get this big drop, and it goes down to actually quite low levels, almost like a hypoglycemic type level. That's why if you walk in the door after work or you haven't eaten for a long time, you're literally, whatever's around you eat, like whether it's a bag of crackers or chips or half a loaf of bread or whatever, popcorn, whatever the case may be. Whatever's around, you're eating it because you're starving, because your blood sugar is basically in the toilet. No wonder you have to eat. It's your body telling you, oh my gosh, I'm gonna pass out if I don't eat. So people do that, and then they get a big spike, and then they get a big drop. Over time, that's what causes diabetes, okay? Because the body can't adjust to continual high levels of blood sugar, and essentially the insulin that our pancreas produces can no longer keep up to that amount of blood sugar, and essentially that's how we develop pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, and then type 2 diabetes. Okay, so the goal is to have nice slow rises, nice slow falls. Protein and fat help to slow down the release of sugar from your carbohydrates. I am by no means one of these people that believes in a low carb diet. That is not me. You need carbohydrates, your brain needs carbohydrates, you need carbohydrates to live. But it's about selecting the carbohydrates in our diet properly, ensuring that they actually have fiber in them. Okay, so it's fibers, carbohydrates.
Is there sufficient carbohydrates in certain vegetables?
Yeah, there are certain, yep, absolutely. Vegetables are a wonderful source of carbohydrates. And you could live very well not eating grains, and just by having a lot of vegetables and complex carbohydrates from sweet potatoes and yams and legumes and vegetables. So absolutely, and fruit, which is a little bit faster acting. So absolutely 100% fine to do that. And in fact, that problem comes back to a lot of people having sensitivities with gluten, which is the protein found in wheat and other grains. And a lot of people find that that's really one of their triggers for why they gain weight and store weight and feel very bloated, is because they're very sensitive to gluten. Yeah. And this again comes back to because we're eating food that nature never intended us to eat food that's like that. Okay? So our body has a difficult time adjusting to it. Okay? Okay, so how are we going to reset our body's metabolism? Because that's really what we need to do. So we need to reset our body's metabolism with food. Okay, so you're going to consume healthy fats, and we're going to talk more about healthy fat, because I have been talking about fats because I've had such great response with borage oil in my life. I became a poster child for GLA and for healthy fats in general, and I've literally spent almost 15 years educating on the importance of healthy fats. So the most important dietary supplement you can take is fish oil, okay? It is the #1 foundational nutrient that I recommend everybody from the time your kids are 6 months old until you basically die. And someone's like, do I always have to take it? Yeah, pretty much. It will be the last thing you are supplementing right until the very, very end. That and probiotics, okay? They're that important for you. They are what I would call foundational nutrients. So everybody take probiotics, which are healthy bacteria. So remember, disease starts in the gut. The gut is the caveat of all healing. Okay? Our gastrointestinal tracts are a direct reflection of what we eat and a direct reflection of the environment and the over antibiotic use and the prescriptions and the toxins and everything else that we've dealt with. So our digestive systems have a massive job in our body to heal us, and without healthy bacteria, they have a really difficult time functioning. Not to mention, we get sick a lot more often, and 80% of our immune system is found inside of our gut. Okay, so really important to have that healthy bacteria, which can come from food, but it also needs to come from supplements. Okay, that's why they are foundational nutrients, because we just can't get enough in the food that we're eating. Okay, same thing with healthy fat. So same thing with omega-3 fatty acids. 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA per day, which is the omega-3s that are found in fish oil or found in krill oil. There's a few different sources of it, but just make sure that you're taking that every single day, and we can talk about the different ways. Now with fats, they do a couple things. They improve our body's cell to use insulin, because fats basically work at the cellular level in our body. So every single cell in our body is made out of a fat. Okay, so if you're eating a diet that's loaded with trans fats and hydrogenated oils and fast food, and that's essentially what your body becomes built out of. That's why I say these things don't happen overnight. You didn't just make a bad diet choice yesterday and then the next day you wake up with insulin resistance and 20 pounds overweight. This is a work in progress, because over time the fats in our diet is what build up the cellular membrane structure. So when you start to increase the amount of good fat and unsaturated fats, this is when your cell structure becomes very fluid in nature. And when your cells become fluid and flexible and bend and move, that's when you can start to absorb everything a lot more efficiently. So basically everything in the body starts working better when you have healthy fats present. There's also some new research to show that omega-3s from fish oil help to release leptin, which is the hormone that gets triggered and released to keep us feeling full. So people who are cravings, people who are starving all the time and who constantly think about food, they likely have an imbalance of ghrelin and leptin. So Dr. Oz talks a lot about ghrelin in his books. Ghrelin is that hormone that growls, so that's how I always remembered ghrelin growling, makes you feel hungry. There are certain foods that trigger a huge release of ghrelin. Aspartame and sugar are definitely one of them. And then there's leptin. So there's hormones and foods that trigger the release of leptin to keep us feeling full and satisfied. And omega-3s from fish oil are definitely one of them. So there's a number of reasons why we need to consume omega-3s every day. Okay? So we're going to consume less refined sugar. We can talk more about that. Consume proper amounts of fiber and protein to slow down the absorption of sugar from our food. We're going to consume small meals often, okay? So if you're eating once or twice a day, you're going to stop that and you're going to start to eat 5 to 6 small meals a day. So you need to have food with you in the car, because I can't even believe what kind of traffic you people have out here. That's just scary. I will never complain about traffic in Vancouver again, because I had a whole new experience with 5 o'clock rush hour traffic. I was like starting to get stressed. I lived myself 3 hours and I'm thinking it's not even going to be enough time. I'm like, I could drive half a BC in that long length of time. So be prepared, basically, okay? If it's work, if it's at home, have grocery shopping once a week so that you know you've always got fresh, healthy food available. Plan. You need to think about it, okay? People plan to have enough gas in their car. People plan to pay their bills. People plan to do all these things. You need to plan to feed your body, okay? Really important to figure out what it is you're gonna eat, what you're gonna buy at the store, what you're gonna cook for your family, so you're not left scrambling. And in that situation where you're at a drive-through, okay? And then you need to exercise, okay? It's not an option, it's a must. You have to move your body every single day. So that doesn't mean spin class or a gym or heavy weightlifting. That means being active, okay? That's simple, like 20 to 30 minute walks. That means swimming. That means gardening. That means a lot of different things. It's just about being active, okay? And I don't believe when people tell me they don't have time. Okay, that's not valid in my world, because I know very, very busy people that work 60, 70-hour weeks with small children and commute, and they still 3 times a week can find time in their schedule to fit in a little bit of exercise. So it's about taking responsibility for their health, okay? And we want to do it so we can build a little bit of muscle, because that's how we're really going to start to target the belly fat, and how we're going to start to shrink the fat is when we have a little bit more muscle. Muscle continually burns calories, okay? So when you start to have more muscle in the body, you're constantly burning calories at rest. And that's what starts to improve your body's metabolism, constantly fueling your body's fat burning machine. So fiber is a big problem in our diet. So we know that we're not getting enough fiber. Men should typically have 38 grams a day, women 25. And on average, men are eating 18 and women are eating 12 grams. So we're a long, long way from reaching our daily goal of fiber. So this might mean you need to start increasing fiber supplements in your diet. If you're somebody who isn't getting enough from leafy vegetables and fruit, it's really not that hard, but it requires some planning. So for example, a nice Bosc pear, 5 grams of fiber in a pear. Pears are very fibrous, okay? That's lots of fiber. 5 grams is a lot. So think of how easily you can get to 25 grams if one pear has 5 grams, okay? You have some brown rice, you eat oatmeal, you have fiber in your shake, you have a nice big salad, there you go, okay? Really not that hard. But if it's challenging for you, ground flax seeds are amazing, and ground flax seeds have been one of the things I've been using for many, many years. And my family eats more ground flax than they even know, because it just goes into everything. Oh, guys, you want to bake cookies? Okay, we germ ground flax. You add in a little bit of sugar, you know. So it's amazing because you can incorporate it into almost anything, and it can be sprinkled on salads and added into blender drinks. And amazing source of fiber. Okay. So fiber is really important. We talked about protein and being important. Now, a lot of people are confused as to how much they should eat with protein, and it really depends on your level of activity, okay? So if you're very active and you do a lot of exercise, you're gonna require more protein than someone who doesn't. But on average, I would recommend about 0.5 grams per pound of body weight, okay? So know how many pounds you are and then multiply that by 0.5. That gives you how many grams of protein you should be aiming for in a day, okay? Protein comes in lots of different forms. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I don't really like meat that much. It's not just found in meat. What else can you eat to give protein?
Quinoa.
Quinoa, very good source. Did you know a papaya has 6 grams of protein in a papaya? What's that? Beans? Yep. Greek yogurt. Okay, if you're gonna buy yogurt, buy Greek yogurt. It contains twice as much protein as regular yogurt.
The legumes have a lot of starch in them too.
What's that?
The legumes have a lot of
Legumes do have a lot of starch. So it depends on your level of sensitivity to the legumes. Hemp hearts are amazing. Avocados have 3 grams of protein in an avocado. I eat avocados almost every day. Healthy fats and protein. Hemp hearts are amazing. If you haven't seen hemp hearts, I'm sure they have them here. I see them right there actually. They're awesome. I just started doing halibut because we have access to tons of fresh halibut. So I've just started doing halibut, dipping it in egg and then mixing it with hemp hearts and some Parmesan cheese, cracked pepper, baking it in the oven. Phenomenal. And they're loaded with protein, loaded with fiber. They taste so delicious. Hemp hearts. Do you want to just grab that bag right there just to show them what they look? It's from the hemp seed. Yeah, that's what they look like there. They're really yummy. I use them as binders in my, I have a new cookbook coming out, so that's why I'm in this recipe mode. So I use it as a binder in my salmon burgers. I put them in my, I have a recipe for ricotta pumpkin pancakes. I put hemp hearts in there. So there's lots of different things that you can do with them and they're just amazing. But definitely coating like chicken or coating halibut in it, baking in the oven is so delicious. Yeah. Shave a little bit of Asiago cheese and a little bit of Parm cheese. It's to die for. It's delicious. So see, there's lots of things. You learned at least one thing tonight with that. Okay. So lots of different places where you can get protein. And again, if you're somebody who eats yogurt, definitely switch over to the Greek yogurt. Is awesome. Eggs, don't be worried about the cholesterol from the eggs. They're like a perfect source of protein. Eat eggs 3 to 5 times per week. I give you permission, okay? They're amazing. They're amazing for your kids. And eggs are appropriate at lunch, breakfast, dinner, snacks. You can eat eggs any time of the day. Yes?
Does it matter if it's fried or boiled?
Does it matter how you prepare it? Yes, it does. But the protein is still there. The preparation method has more to do with heart healthy benefits, etc. If you're gonna fry them, that's fine. Just make sure you're choosing the right type of fat to fry your food in. Olive oil is not meant for frying everything. So it's a matter of learning which type of oils are appropriate for which cooking application and method, okay? Okay, so your protein plan is to eat a protein choice with each meal or snack. So this is gonna require some planning, especially if you're not eating much protein. So this is one of the reasons why I love protein shakes, because I know for me, that takes care of 2 snacks right there, okay? And then for my meals, I have eggs almost every single day. Okay, and then I get variety of protein either at lunch with tuna or salmon, and then at dinner with a piece of fish or a small piece of free-range meat. It's very easy. So you just got to think a little bit though about it. Okay. If you're trying to lose weight, I would recommend replacing 1 to 2 meals per day with shakes in the beginning until you lose, I would say, the initial amount of weight that you want to lose, and then you can start adding back in real food. But it's a great way to really try to control the amount that you're consuming, because people are always like, it doesn't matter about calories. Yes and no. You have to really be smart with what you're eating, and then I say no, don't worry about the calories. But in the beginning, especially if you're trying to lose some weight, you do have to be a little bit cognizant and a little bit aware of what is being taken in. So my thinking and my thoughts are different depending on what your issue is. Okay, so when you're doing protein for weight loss and muscle building, look for whey protein. Whey protein is the best for that. If you're in a maintenance phase, and you're not worried about building muscle anymore or losing fat, then definitely switch over to the vegetarian proteins if you want as an alternative. And there are some really nice vegetarian proteins as well. I love the Sequel brand, which Jen was demoing earlier today as a veggie protein. It's one of my favorites. Okay. Okay, so omega-3s, we talked a little bit about that. I talked about, sometimes I skip ahead a little bit. The foundational nutrients, I talked about the essential fatty acids, so definitely omega-3s from fish or krill oil. The probiotics, so there's a couple different options, and at the end, if you want me to go through in more detail any of the products, I'm happy to. There's a number of them, but you can see these are sort of the ones that I select and that I pick of being some of my favorites. A multivitamin is great, okay, and it would become, especially if your diet has been a little bit haphazard and poor, you're lacking energy, you're feeling stressed out. For your children, multivitamins are really important for kids because kids' diets are very sporadic, especially I find with my children. Sometimes they're the most amazing eaters in the world, and then I go through a week and I'm like, oh my goodness, like lost like 5 pounds, like they're just not eating. So multivitamins can have a really important role, and I love the Alive men's and women's multivitamin just because they're so energizing. Okay, when it comes to weight loss, I'll spend a little bit more time going through some of these because this is what the topic of the presentation was about. But this is the first ever all-natural solution for targeting belly fat, and that's what Safslim is. So Safslim was on Dr. Oz back in January with Montel Williams, who is the celebrity spokesperson for this product. And this product was clinically studied on postmenopausal women who carried extra weight in their stomach, and they found they lost up to about 6.5% of their belly fat from doing nothing other than increasing the amount of safflower oil that's found in Safslim. Okay, and it was a study done at Ohio State University, and it was remarkable, and it caught the attention of researchers and media all across Canada and the United States, and that was how Safslim came to be. So I actually do education for the Safslim company out in the US, and it's been remarkably successful, and they've sold millions and millions of bottles of Safslim in the United States, and there's an entire online community that exists for Safslim. It's like the diet's product of the Weight Watchers type regime. There's like this blogging and live Twitter chats and like all these things, and if you're really trying to lose belly fat, you just go on there for inspiration and you feel like a new person because it's real people who are using it and kind of chronicling their journey through losing their weight, and they give recipe suggestions and different ways that you can use it, and so it's really, really great, and it comes in 3 different flavors. There's no stimulants, there's no added sugar, it's all natural, and it works on the underlying reason why those women were storing fat in their stomach. And for those particular reason, it was hormonally related. So it was related to fluctuating levels of adiponectin, and it was relating to fluctuating levels of estrogen, and when they increased the amount of the healthy fat, it really started to balance everything out, and they just started to drop fat in their stomach. Okay, and it was done over a 4-month period, so that's really important when you use Safslim, that you commit to it for that time. If you're only able to, and you can only kind of budget in 1 bottle, it's not the right product, because for it to really do justice, it's a program, and so it really needs to be followed properly. It's delicious, so it tastes really good. People also say that it helps to reduce their sugar cravings, and it also helps to balance their blood sugar, so they feel a lot more satisfied overall when they're using Safslim. So 3 different flavors, and I know Samantha is demoing all 3 of them tonight, so you can try them out.
How much do they have to have a day?
So each day you take 2 tablespoons, and you take it before you eat or with food. So it's important when you take a lot of your dietary supplements that you're eating, okay? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I took that vitamin, I felt so nauseous. I'm like, well, did you eat? No. I'm like, well, that's why. You have to have food present in your stomach, otherwise it doesn't get absorbed as efficiently, and some people experience a little bit of nausea and a little bit of GI upset. So I always recommend 30 minutes before you eat or right when you're eating, and that's when you take your Safslim twice a day. So 1 tablespoon twice a day, and that's the exact same amount that they used in the clinical study.
So that's not a supplement.
It,
to have it with your food.
Yeah, they consider it a supplement though still. It's sold as a food in Canada because of labeling regulations, but it's a supplement. Like in the United States, it's sold as a dietary supplement.
What I meant was you couldn't have that just by itself.
No, no, no. You have to eat. Yeah, you have to take it. It's just by the tablespoonful. You take it every day for 3 months. Usually people start to notice a pretty dramatic difference right down in this particular area within 4 weeks. And then that's enough to kind of keep them going. They're like, oh, this is working. Okay, I'm going to keep doing it. So the results are definitely there.
Now and I am losing weight.
Good.
I still find my stomach is.
It's going to take some time. It's going to take some time.
So I don't know if this will help.
Yep. Yep. It takes time, and it depends on the reason why you were gaining weight in the first place. Is it poor diet choices? Everything. So you're like one of the, okay, so you kind of got it all. So you'd benefit from more protein, yeah, eating regularly.
Less protein.
Yeah.
Control my sugar, I was eating less of everything.
See? Yeah.
So
yeah.
I was managing the sugar studies okay.
Yeah.
But I ruined the metabolism.
That's right.
Yeah.
Your metabolism's sleeping, so you need to fire up the metabolism. And Safslim is really great for that. That's one of the things that it helps to do.
Meat, fish, vegetables.
Good for you. and you feel so much better. See?
You have so much energy.
See? That is what everybody tells me.
Because what I did in an hour and a half, I didn't do it in an hour and a half.
Isn't that amazing? Good for you. That's a great, great testimony. Yeah. Yes?
So you should take a tablespoon and wait 30 minutes before you eat?
Or you can take it right when you eat. It's fine. They put on there like 30 minutes before eating, but it's not, that's not important. It's just to make sure you've got food present to help with the absorption of the healthy fats. Okay, so it's healthy fats, that's what it's working on. So we're working on leptin levels, we're working on controlling ghrelin, we're working on increasing adiponectin, changing cellular structure, and because it's a healthy omega-6 fat, it's really great for female health. Skin, hair, nails, hormones, there's a lot of other side benefits that kind of come with it. So it's an excellent product. Okay, so those are omega-3s. Coconut oil is another thing. So coconut's really hot. I love coconut oil. I love cooking in it. It's another thing I cook a lot, especially halibut and pancakes. And there's a few items that are just really, really nice cooked with halibut. In fact, if I do the chocolate protein, I sometimes add a little bit of coconut oil in the blender with it with some ice cubes, and it gives it a really nice flavor. There's not as much clinical science per se with coconut oil losing weight, but it definitely helps your body to increase its metabolism. Because it's fat, we need fat in the body. If you don't have enough fat in the body, your metabolism really shuts down.
But doctors complain about the saturated fat.
Yeah, and that's very true, they do. So what they don't understand though is that the kind of saturated fat in there is different than the saturated fat found in red meat. So for example, this is what we call short and medium chain saturated fats. Long chain saturated fat is what's found in red meat. So 5 years ago, that was kind of where I ended my thinking. Now, because I've just finished writing my new book, I found all this research to support that really the saturated fat cardiovascular disease thing that we thought was real is not real, and it was way blown out of proportion. And it's not, saturated fat doesn't really cause heart disease like people thought it did. So this is why the thinking has changed so much. And so
You think a lot about it.
yes, it is. So I write a lot about it in my new book.
So then you don't know. The doctor says one
I
thing,
know.
the naturopathic says
I know. You know, the thing I think is that doctors, I think, have so much they need to know and so much they need to learn. And literally, I have so many friends of mine that are physicians, and they spend maybe 4 weeks in their entire career learning anything about nutrition. So it's just not their thing. Just like I don't claim to know about all the drugs and know about all the diseases, and I could never operate on somebody, but I know nutrition intimately and I know it well from living and breathing. And so it is one of those things. But I always recommend people talking with their doctor and just letting them know the things that they're going to be doing and the changes that they're making, but know what you want to do and don't be kind of swayed off the path that you're sort of going down, right?
Half the time I don't tell them.
And that's what most people do. But that's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate that we can't talk to our doctors
I know.
about what we're doing. But a lot of people just say, they're not going to tell me to do that anyway, so I'm not going to bother telling them. They're going to say, no, don't take that, or they're going to, you know, it's unfortunate. The other thing that's great is coconut water. So I don't know if you've drank coconut water. Now, one of the reasons I love coconut water is because when people often mistake thirst for hunger. So they're actually quite thirsty, but they think they're hungry. So instead of drinking and consuming liquid, they eat and they snack. So if you were to replace that eating and snacking with fluid, you'd be surprised. You're probably not as hungry as you think you are.
There's a lot of nutritious values of coconut.
And there's tons of nutritious value. There's tons of electrolytes, so it's very hydrating for the body. And they also say that it does help to speed up your metabolism a little bit. And honestly, tons of nutrition in coconut water. So it is a great fluid to drink on a daily basis. So if you haven't tried that, I recommend giving that a try. Okay. Probiotics, we talked a little bit about these already, and like I said, it's a foundational nutrient, so the fats and the probiotics and the multivitamins are definitely what we should be taking. There's two different kinds of probiotics because there's an entire refrigerator full of probiotics. It's a little bit overwhelming sometimes to know which is for what. There's two families. There's this lactobacilli family right here. That's all the bacteria that's in the upper small intestinal tract, okay? Then there's the bifidobacteria, and that's found in the colon and the large intestine. So ideally, we want to try to balance both of those. So it's having a combination of both those families so that we're targeting the entire GI tract from top to bottom, okay? So there's all kinds of different options available, some that are found in the refrigerator and others that are shelf stable. For me, the shelf stable ones are more convenient because I'm like traveling and on the road, and I don't want to worry about getting them into a refrigerator. So this is one of my favorites. This is one of my go-to probiotics is the Fortify, but it's a little bit more aggressive because it's got 8 billion live bacteria in one supplement. So if you've never taken probiotics before, you're better off starting with one of the more introductory pearl type products that have 1 to maybe 2 billion in the little pearl, much more gentle on the digestive system. So it really just depends on where you're at with your probiotic supplements.
What would happen if you took the 8 billion?
Some people experience diarrhea and a little bit of GI upset. Yeah, I mean nothing serious, but this is one of the side effects that people might notice. The other thing when starting on probiotics is that people do experience quite a lot of gas and cramping. That's very normal, and that's exactly what's supposed to be happening. And it's related to the die-off of the unhealthy bacteria that's present in the gut. So as they're dying off, they release methane gas, and it creates a lot of gas, pain, and discomfort. So for people that are just starting probiotics, I usually recommend taking them at night before you go to bed. It also helps to reset the circadian rhythm. So it really resets the regularity for people. That's one of the benefits. And then as well, you're not dealing with gassing and cramping during the day. Instead, it's happening at night when you don't even know, which is good. And then second of all, start with a lower count and then work your way up after about a month or so on being on one of the more introductory products. And then there's all kinds in between that. There's so many different options. From food, you can get probiotics from any kind of fermented food will contain it. Kefir will, yogurt will, there's drinkable yogurt forms. But just keep in mind that those are mainly beneficial for the stomach and possibly the top of the small intestinal tract. Because our stomachs are so acidic, those living bacteria have a very hard time bypassing all the acid in the stomach. So there's a lot of die-off that happens before they get to the actual gut. So to really target the health of the gastrointestinal tract, you pretty much need to have supplements for that. That's why fish oils and probiotics are the 2 most important things that I recommend for people to take. Okay, here's the Alive multivitamin, which is awesome. I've been doing the Alive multivitamin for 10 years. And now they just came out with a kids formula, which I have to hide the bottle because they want more, 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 and it's like, one, it's not candy. You need to have more. Okay, these are my little omega-3 babies. And my kids have, I always tell people, they've been drinking fish oil from the bottle since they were 6 months old. And it's actually true. And yeah, they're 4 and almost 2 now. And this is my new book that's coming out this fall, so you can look for that. And I'm a regular on Canada AM now every 2 weeks, so you can log in Canada AM. I was there this morning, and then I'm back on the 25th, so you can look there. And that's my website, KarleneKarst.com.
The weight loss I'm on is to do with
this one?
Metabolic Syndrome.
Oh yeah?
It's a group of doctors.
Yeah. Well, I have my book here, and I'll give you a copy, so you can have it. It's got my whole plan for people with metabolic syndrome, and yeah.
And that's the only thing I've tried millions of stuff. That's the only thing that I'm losing
That's
the weight.
good for you. Good for you. You know what? Everybody's body is different, and what works for one doesn't necessarily work for others. So it's about adjusting.
But I have been, because of my diabetes.
You have to.
Eating 5-6 meals a day works for me.
Yep, and that works for me too. I would probably gain 10 pounds if I stopped eating like that. It's just it really is one of the easiest things that people can do and have quite successful results with minimal effort, really. Yeah. And tonight Nature's Way is offering the Belly Fat Breakthrough booklet when you buy Safslim for tonight. And I want to thank the Healthy Planet and Nature's Way for having me here. And thank you for coming.